Fucking hell.
Welcome to Podquisition,
Hello,
everyone. It's a
yes.
video game show. Some of us played video games this week, probably.
Yeah.
Who played stuff they want to talk about?
Should we just do the big game that at least two of us bothered to play?
Yeah, let's do the one that I know me and Conrad want to talk about. You want to
Sure.
kick us off?
Yeah, so Pikmin's out, and it's another Pikmin game, which is to say that it's a lot of fun. I mean, it's the same old story, right? It's Olimar gets trapped on a planet, and you have to go rescue him. They have added this dog.
Yeah, let's talk about Ochi. Ochi?
Yeah, Ochi, I think, is how you say
Yeah.
it. That sounds right. Ochi is a incredibly useful character. Like, holy shit.
Yeah,
Um,
he's a goofy little yellow dog with only 2 legs.
Only 2 legs.
Yeah,
Only two legs.
He's just got back legs, and he kind of hops a bit like a kangaroo, but he's a dog.
Is this like... Did he lose them? Or is that like the species, it has 2 legs?
I think it's just built that way.
Oh.
It's just
Yeah.
the species. It's dogs that only have 2 back legs, and they sort of hop around.
Right. Okay.
And he's an incredibly useful multifunction character. Like, they introduced cooperative elements in Pikmin 3, where you have a squad of eventually 3 characters that you switch between to solve puzzles. In 4, they've sort of winnowed that down a bit, making the dog necessary for a few of those puzzles, but it's not as much of a focus as it was in 3. I think to the betterment of the game.
I agree, yeah.
But the other thing that's so interesting about that is Ochi plays differently from your character.
Yes.
He can jump on his own, and so clearing small barriers with him is tremendously valuable. Just from a basic navigation point in opening up access to areas quickly. But having that one little element of verticality added into it to where you have some sense that you have more control over where you can go in the environment is nice.
And I think that they've balanced it well, because the big drawback to Ochi is Ochi cannot go through small gaps. So if you've got, like, a series of bars, you and the Pikmin can walk through, but you can't bring Ochi with you, and let's say you get through those bars and you see a very small ledge, now you're like, oh, I know what my objective is, I'm trying to find a way to bring those barriers down so I can get Ochi through, so I can jump up a minor ledge.
Right. But by contrast, he can attack.
Yes.
Ochi has attack capabilities that your character doesn't also. And that's interesting. His rush attack is incredibly powerful. You have an ability
Yes.
where if you do your little jump and you hold the jump button, it charges up an attack. It's a big rush, and then once you hit, any Pikmin that are on Ochi will fly off forward in the direction of your strike and onto an enemy if you've hit them. And the amount of damage that you can do with a full complement of Pikmin landing immediately after this hit, which itself does a not insignificant amount of damage when leveled up, is a really quick way to eliminate a lot of enemies in the game.
Yes.
And it also gets a stun that you can buy for it. That's the other thing. Equipment has been just blown up. They've added so much stuff there.
Yeah, so you now start with, like, less ability than you do in other Pikmin games in certain capacities, and some of it is stuff you have to sort of earn and unlock through play, but it also gives you a lot of resources with which to prioritize picking up, above and beyond what you used to be able to do, new little character upgrades, and those are really nice.
Yeah. The environment now has, because in the past you would find like building resources in an area, and they would be specifically for the purpose of building some construct somewhere in a level, a bridge or what have you. In Pikmin 4, you collect those resources and bring them back, and they can be used to be applied to any construct on any map. But as well as that, those resources are used to buy equipment from your little base hub. There's a scientist who makes available all sorts of upgrades and items, and that is a huge shift too. There are like defensive upgrades to account for all of the various elemental damage types that you can take, and there's health buffs for you and Ochi and that sort of stuff. But then there's just some tremendously useful accessories, like the item that lets you call all of your idle Pikmin back to you.
I was going to mention, I was so happy to see that. Any Pikmin that aren't currently doing a job, you can just go, get the fuck over here. And that, because I know I don't need to go back to the base every single time my Pikmin deliver a thing and go grab those Pikmin. I can go grab them as a batch later, but in my head I'm like, nah, I can't be leaving Pikmin around doing nothing. I have to go back and get them. As much of a waste of time as that is, and that just destroyed that brain demon for me.
But it's interesting because I'm in now what I can't help but assume is the final area of the game. And I haven't used it yet. I bought the thing, and I only recently bought it. I kept forgetting it was there, because one of the other things you can do, and this just speaks to sort of the flexibility of options that Pikmin 4 is providing to players, I just trained Ochi to do it. Because Ochi gets his own progression path, and his own skills that can all get upgraded. And one of the abilities that you can teach Ochi is to go and retrieve your Pikmin from the home base. You go to the home base, he can retrieve Pikmin from anywhere on the map and just bring them back to you. He just hunts down all the idols wherever they are.
Yeah.
So I've just not bothered, and I keep forgetting that I can send Ochi to do that too, for that matter, because it's just such a compulsion to run back and get your Pikmin. And that's something that I'm gonna have to break myself of because of some of the but we'll get into that later. One of the other elements of this that's really fascinating with the resources is that all of the sort of single-use items that you could get in prior Pikmin games, you can now just buy them with these resources.
Yes. Which I've never really done, but I can totally see once I have all of the, like, permanent upgrades done, I'm going to start doing that, and I appreciate that it's there. There's a couple of times I used it, actually. Like, early on, there was a pond that needed, like, 30 ice Pikmin, and I don't think I had 30 Pikmin full stop at that point, and, like, going and buying an ice bomb did solve that problem for me.
Yeah, a lot of the single use, well, actually, I haven't bought a lot of the equipment, despite how far into the game that I am. I haven't bought any of the elemental damage resistance upgrades at all.
Interesting.
I haven't found them necessary. The combat in this is such that I can take out the enemies and frankly, the traps faster than it would be, a concern in most. It's just a planning thing generally. So I haven't bought any of those. But one of the things that I really like is, this is good and bad. The bombs that would be used to destroy concrete walls in prior games, the little explosive devices, you would have to find those by finding a dirt mound and having your Pikmin dig them up. And there would be enough to deal with the ones on, a level that you would need, but that would be it. Here, you can buy them and use them at any time. You can use them as offensive weapons, and that's really interesting. But it does mean that you're not going to find as many, or at least you're not necessarily going to find the one you need in the environment in a convenient location. A bit of a trade-off there, and I have bought a couple of bombs just to have on hand in case I find a wall and I don't want to, hunt around vainly looking for an explosive that may not be there. But that is useful. It had not occurred to me to use the ice bomb to compensate for a lack of Pikmin to freeze a surface, though. And I guess that's a good time, as good times anyway, to talk about some of the other, like, Pikmin, because Ice Pikmin are new, aren't they?
I honestly can't remember if we've had them before or not. I think they're new. I'm pretty sure they're new.
I think every other Pikmin in this is returning. You have your traditional red, yellow, and blue. The rock Pikmin are back.
Yeah, they are new. I thought they were, but the second you asked me that, I'd second guess myself.
Yeah, but I think they're the only other new Pikmin, because I think the purple Pikmin that...
Purple Pikmin have definitely been around before.
Yeah, they've been around before.
Well, there's at least one other type we'll get to in a second, is the glowing ones.
Oh, yes, I always forget about that. Again, something else I almost never use. The poison and flying Pikmin they're all in here.
Yeah.
And they limit you in that you can have 3 Pikmin types with you at any time, at any one time, with one notable exception. And yeah, they're all there. They're all doing the same shit. But the ice Pikmin are really interesting. They have a few abilities for, because they are cold. They're necessary for attacking certain cold enemies. That's all well and good. But every body of water in the game has a freezing point.
Yes.
At which you throw enough of these ice Pikmin in, and a body of water then becomes a solid surface that you can traverse.
Yes.
And I love that, but more to the point of the ice Pikmin is their function in combat. They are the most useful combat creatures in this game. I fucking love them.
They are, with one notable exception, and this is touching on a mechanic that I'm sure we'll talk about in a second, but there is a high score chasing mode that you can do. And one thing I will note about the ice Pikmin is that if you defeat a creature with an ice Pikmin while they're frozen and they shatter, they don't leave a corpse, and you can't point score off bringing their corpse back. And it's the one place I've had to be careful about them is, generally speaking, I 100% agree with you, they are the most useful type of combat Pikmin. I constantly want them in my pockets, because being able to freeze an enemy for a period of time is so nice.
Oh, not merely that, but you can freeze them, you follow it up with a dash from Ochi, you throw all of your Pikmin onto the enemy, and, if they're not shattered immediately by running through them, and you'll just wipe them out. There's almost nothing in the game that can stand up to it. Really cool ability. Did they have dungeons in... I can't remember. I don't...
So, underground caves had been a thing in the past, but they definitely weren't this elaborate and intense. Because now, most of the times when you find a cave in this, they are multi-level themed dungeons with a particular mechanic they're trying to teach you, or a thematic element you're dealing with. And they feel very, very... the caves are memorable. They have very distinct identities to them, tonally and gameplay-wise. I could pick out a specific one and go, yeah, I remember what I was doing there.
For the most part, they have some sort of thematic element to the Pikmin that you can bring with you, and so that often provides an interesting challenge into what you can apply. They're also the way to get the rarer Pikmin types.
Yes.
So if you want more rock Pikmin, or you do eventually get an onion to make ice Pikmin. It's funny, you get them almost immediately in terms of having them for use in the game. But you don't get the onion to produce more until you're in the back 20%.
Yeah. Though, that being said, I have managed to never be short of ice Pikmin.
No, they're pretty prevalent in terms of having access to them in dungeons. They show up a lot, so it's well, and as they should, being the new Pikmin. It just makes sense that you get more out of them. But I do think that's was an interesting design choice. Yeah, the dungeons are a lot more elaborate. they're fun little puzzles still. I enjoy them. The the alternate mode gameplay of
Yeah.
this, I like it, but
Yeah.
I don't feel it was necessary.
I definitely don't think it was necessary, but I've really enjoyed the addition.
Mhm.
So for anyone who's not played this, there's two new modes. They're Dondori Battle and Dondori something else, Dondori Challenge.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, so Battle is, I think, the easier one to explain and the more distinctive a change. It is a 1v1 split screen who can Pikmin the best in a time limit against a CPU opponent. You are dropped into a little battle arena, and there are a bunch of things for your Pikmin to be collecting, breaking down walls, finding higher level things, getting seeds to get more Pikmin. And there is another person also trying to get a higher score than you by collecting better things. And outside of just the trying to be efficient about like picking your route, selecting what you're gonna try and collect, one of the things that I think is a nice touch is that if the opponent is trying to, let's say, like take a big apple that's gonna be worth like 10 points, if you send more Pikmin than they have sent, you start winning the tug of war and pulling it your direction towards your base.
Mm-hmm.
It encourages you not to overcommit to any one thing you're trying to collect for yourself and keep an eye on having a pocket full of Pikmin ready to grab something that's a nice point scorer off someone else. I've really enjoyed those. I've been replaying them between missions, trying to get platinum scores on all of those. I really dig them. The other one, Dondori Challenge, is here is a map full of a set number of treasures to collect, and you have like 5 minutes. Try and get as high a score as you can, and ideally for like the platinum rank, collect every single piece of treasure that exists within this environment before the time runs out. And
Every treasure and creature.
yes, every treasure and creature, and again, without using ice Pikmin, because that'll break them and you won't get the points for some of the creatures. But those, I think, are where the ice Pikmin, I really started to click with some of the value they had, in that ice Pikmin become really invaluable for creating shortcuts throughout levels, and creating ways for you to not have to carry an object the long way around.
Oh boy.
Yeah, and generally a lot of those challenge missions is not only like what's the quickest, efficient, and most efficient route to grab more Pikmin, grab treasures, but also what order do I need to be opening up shortcuts back to where I've got to drop them off to minimize time wasting.
Well, and another element that enters into this is in another new feature. I think this is a new feature. Is you can relocate the base.
Yes,
In many levels.
Yes. Definitely in all the like big overworld levels, but also in a lot of these.
In a lot of the
levels.
dungeons, yeah. And so that can be, all right, well, do I need to have the base on this side of the map, and how does that affect my shortcuts? I was just playing last night before bed a challenge level. I don't know if you've had this one yet, where you have 2 bodies of water in separated rooms, with 15 ice Pikmin required.
I literally, like 20 minutes before we recorded today, I did this exact one, yeah.
I am so close to platinuming that one. I am so close. But it's that watermelon and the 2 enemies next to it. I just can't quite get to them in time.
Yeah, I've yet to... I got a gold on my first attempt, and I can see what I need to be doing differently. Because, like, I think that's a really fun one, because you get access to so many purple Pikmin in it, that it's a case of, like, all of these big items are really easy to carry. I just need to be prioritizing everything around that.
Yeah. Yeah. And one, it's tricky, too, because you also, like, you have to convert Pikmin that you're going to need to do other things in that process. So when do you start collecting all of this shit with your big Pikmin?
At what point do you call 15 of those ice Pikmin out of the water because you think, okay, this room we're done with, that's 15 extra Pikmin for me to be sending other places. And
but could you be using those 15 Pikmin to solve something else in the room in a shorter period of time and then toss them back in? Like, that all plays a role, and
And honestly, I've really loved the puzzle of platinum hunting on those challenge missions, because they all feel like completable, but you've really got to try for it.
Yep.
And there is just enough time, and I've really dug that challenge.
Which I guess should lead us to the other big new mode in this, which is night explorations. For the first time, the game is going into night. Traditionally in Pikmin games, everything follows a day-night cycle, but you stop when night comes because the monsters are too aggressive to deal with, is the idea. So now you're doing night expeditions, and these take the form of another just sort of alternate mode, as opposed to actually exploring the environments at night. You're put in the levels, but now there are bases that you have to defend from oncoming hordes of enemies. There's a time limit on the stage, and if you exceed the time limit, that's one way to victory. The other way to victory is to eliminate all of the enemies on the map, which is possible in most of these expeditions, it seems. But you can't take your regular Pikmin. They give you the other new type of Pikmin, which are glow Pikmin, which are ghosts?
I think so?
Question mark?
Yeah, they cannot die, and they can only be out at night. I think they're ghosts. But they're ghosts that you can carry in the form of a seed, so right. They're somewhat tangible.
Right, and that's one of the rewards for doing this mode, is that you get 20% of your collected Pikmins in glow seeds for use in other dungeons in the game. So these seeds can be used to expand your rank of Pikmins to get yourself a little bit more oomph if you are in a dungeon. I've never done it.
I can tell you exactly the one dungeon I did it in, and you'll know this one. It's the one that's you're being hunted by Nemesis.
Oh, sure.
Yeah, because in that one, the game was giving me lots and lots of signals to be like, no, you can't deal with this, come back later, run, get to the next floor. And I said, no, fuck you, I'm going to 100% this dungeon on the first try and collect all the treasure, despite the threat that I can't actually deal with. And I lost a fair amount of Pikmin in the process. But the glow seed Pikmin were really useful when I was running low on the Pikmin I was supposed to be using, because I was trying to collect every piece of treasure against an unkillable foe I could not do anything about.
That leads into another feature that's been added that I didn't think I would use, but wound up using a lot out of convenience, and that's the rewind time mechanic.
Yes.
That allows you to go back a period of time as determined by the game. It can vary from like 5 minutes to like 30 seconds, but
I think the easy way to describe it is back to what would be your last autosave, or if you're in a dungeon, back to the start of the floor.
Right, but it doesn't really give you any indication. Well, even in the dungeons, you could go back a minute or 2 minutes. It's not restricted to that, but
it's not precise, but like that's the best ballpark of like the vibe of when you can rewind to.
Yeah, and I'm fine with it being a vibe. Like, if I'm gonna have to, it's never more than a few minutes that I'm losing, and, I just did it, so it's not like I can't remember what I did to get back there. But, like, and I didn't use it in that dungeon with the steamroller, but I have used it in many other dungeons where I will, have a small wipeout where I lose, 5, 6 Pikmin, and I'm just like, fuck that, I'm not losing my Pikmins, and you rewind it, and that's very convenient. That, I think, is the main takeaway I have from Pikmin 4, generally speaking, is that it is all about quality of life improvements throughout this. Pikmin 3 had that huge quality of life improvement with the Go Here command, which returns and is still just such a great feature, especially on a map where your arrow indicator is showing you the direction that the camera is facing, not the direction the character is facing. I see why you would do that, but it drives me nuts. My head can't handle that spatial relationship, and I'm constantly losing track of where I'm supposed to be going. So having that click on the map and they go to the place that I want them to go without my needing to figure out what direction that actually is just so nice. But and that's not to say that like all of these quality of life enhancements are great. I think the level design isn't as tight in Pikmin 4, and that a lot of that feels like it's owing to all of the options it's provided for navigation, that they know they feel like they need to use those rather than creating stages that satisfyingly loop back on themselves in the way that prior Pikmin games have.
Yeah, and we were talking about this the other day, and I think you put it well when you said, as convenient as moving the bases around the levels is, it feels like it exists because of the change to how these levels are structured. Like, it feels like it is a band-aid for the fact that, like, the levels are not what they used to be in some ways.
I mean, I feel like they inform each other. I think that in part the level design, perspective shifts when you're designing these, because you don't have to think about bringing everyone back to a central point. That there are going to be multiple points that they can go to. So I don't know if it's, papering over poor level design or its availability is making it easier to do poor level design. And it's not even fair to say that it's poor.
Yeah, poor level design isn't the right way to put it, but I level design that lacks a certain element that used to be a hallmark of how Pikmin levels were designed.
Yes.
And that is going to be a personal preference whether how you feel about that. And I don't always dislike it.
Nope.
But it's definitely different.
I do think it is, just generally speaking, broadly more accessible to players.
Agreed.
The content density and variety is very impressive.
Yeah.
I'm pleased that there's enough to do. If I'm getting tired of an exploration, there are lots of options for me to keep playing and having fun with that.
Yeah.
And I'm into all of that. I've heard people talk about, they're desperate to try and get people to finally like Pikmin. I don't think this is going to do that.
No, I think this is the best chance that a lot of people are going to have to like Pikmin. But I think if you if you actively really disliked it before, there's a lot of things that aren't going to win you over here. Like, it depends what your problems with past Pikmins are. Like, to my understanding, this doesn't have the thing that some past Pikmin games had, where if you don't complete the game within a set number of days, you get a bad ending.
Yes.
And if for example that is your problem with past Pikmins, this is this is an accessible entry point. There are certain changes like that that will bring some people over to I like Pikmin now. I don't think it's gonna cause a huge shift in the audience size for the series.
And I think that I don't think the reason people weren't playing Pikmin was that it was inaccessible in a mechanical sense. I think Pikmin never caught on in the way that it seems Nintendo wants it to as a franchise, because it's too fucking weird.
Yeah.
And you know how I know that that's the problem with Pikmin as a series? Because this is the most chibi-robo a Pikmin game has ever fucking been.
Oh, that is the perfect way to describe it.
That has been the comparison
the
that people keep giving me as I stream this. Everybody who comes in and looks at it at first, as I've been playing on stream, says, this is a lot like Chibi Robo, isn't it? And
I've been streaming
it.
No one has made that comparison, but they are so correct to make it.
Yeah. And part of that too is it is definitely fleshed out the lore of Pikmin 4 in a way that it never has before, and has given us a little. And I'm saying this to avoid. I'm saying it this way to avoid spoilers of any sort, but you learn more about the planet that all of these games have been set on, which it's not going to surprise anybody that it is Earth, but you learn more about the Earth that you did not have a clear conception of in this game, that sort of changes the whole perspective, and I dare say could allow Chibi Robo to exist in the Pikmin universe. I'm just throwing that out there. If they wanted to do a crossover Pikmin Chibi Robo, I am down for that shit.
I mean, they feel at home with each other.
Right? Yeah. So, but yeah, but that's it. I think the game's just too fucking weird. People look at it and they're like, what is this? And there isn't a great way to communicate in 15 seconds what this game is. The elevator pitch is hard, and it is very brightly colored and distracting and strange. And I think that's been the barrier to entry. It's not whether or not the game was good or well designed or was thinking about the player. Those things are all nice, and it's certainly improved in that respect, and this is by far the most accessible. But I can't help but feel that it's not an issue of there wasn't an audience of people who were held back by Pikmin being too hard to play. I just think it's too strange.
No, I don't disagree, but yeah.
But thank God they keep sticking with it, because I love these games, and I want to keep playing them.
Like, for any changes that were made that I don't personally vibe with, it doesn't change the fact that, like, I have spent this all of my free gaming time this week basically playing this game, and it has been exactly as delightful as I expect a Pikmin game to be.
Yep.
I am having the time I expected to have, and that's great. It's just been very wholesome, and it's just been... Yeah, actually, side note, something that's really nice that I really appreciate. I really like that if you're stuck trying to find one thing in a level because you're trying to 100% it, that your dog can sniff out and bring you to roughly where it is.
Well, and if you are ever in need of specialty Pikmin, he can hunt down what dungeons have those in them, and that's a huge convenience too. Yeah. The dog's just great.
The dog is just great.
I hate to say this, but Peter Molyneux was right. They made me care about that fucking dog. They Peter Molyneux'd me.
How dare they do that? That is unacceptable.
How dare.
No one should ever be Molyneux'd.
No. But yeah. I think that's pretty much all I have to say about it. It's a good game. Yeah. It's a good game. It plays pretty well with the version of Yuzu that I'm using. Has just, I feel like I feel like I should be offering, some like when a port comes out. Well,
are you going to be our emulator reporter?
Oh God!
How's the Yuzu port?
The Yuzu port it's pretty good. I'm on 1502. It has a weird problem playing like the tutorial videos that come up in when you're looking at menus, and that translates to the title screen and so forth. At some point in running it, it seems to break down. Dark levels. That was the big problem. Something about the lighting effects with the headlamp in those dark levels does not play well. So sometimes you can't see shit. Sometimes it's just blinding. But apart from those issues, which, your mileage may vary on a different emulator or on a later update, but apart from that, runs pretty well. Some frame drop periods, it'll drag on my system, down to, 2 frames a second occasionally. But on the whole, no complaints. It works well enough that it's quite playable in emulation. So, Good times.